later on in this next chapter, he's saying, okay, the head and the heart can't say to each other, I don't need you. The foot can't say to the hand, I don't need you. The eye can't say to the ear, I don't need you. They're different, but they're equal. Does that make sense? This whole context is all together. It's all united together. And if we start to understand, if we start to falsely understand, incorrectly understand that St. Paul is making a distinction and saying one is better than the other. The idea of having authority does not mean superiority. The idea of surrendering oneself or submitting oneself does not mean inferiority. That is not the context. And we know this because of verse 3, where when St. Paul says the head of Christ, the head of Jesus Christ is God. Right. Order, not inferiority and superiority. We know this. Okay, so does that make sense? We need to drill this in because I know that there are some women who, when they heard this, they automatically shut down, or they put up their dukes, right? They kind of like put up the walls and defensives. I'm like, I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to throw down. You talked about St. Nick and Arius, fighting. We're going to fight, Father, like right here. Like, no. So important. And we know this again. It's reiterated because in verse 11 and 12, it said, nevertheless, in the Lord, woman is not independent of man, nor man of woman. We need each other. For as woman was made from man, speaking of Genesis chapter 2, so now man is born of woman. And all things are from God. So keep that in mind. This whole thing in mind is that we need each other. Now, the church was hate. Think, where do we even get the idea that men and women are equal? We get that from the Bible. The Judeo-Christian worldview is men and women are equal. The only place in the world, the only religion in the world, the only philosophy in the world that's ever taught that is this, the books we've been reading, these 73 books that we're reading in this one year. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Oh my gosh, it's so important for us. Okay, what's he talking about? Head covering then? Well, in the ancient world, a woman that went without her head covered was most likely a prostitute. Just there you go. So here St. Paul is saying, yeah, eat whatever you want, drink whatever you want, unless it's going to lead someone to sin. So here's some women who are like, in that case, I'm taking off the veil covering. I don't have to go outside with this veil because I'm not living under the law anymore. I'm living in the Spirit. And he's like, yeah, but listen, that's going to be hurtful to some other people. It's not actually very honoring because you're going to lead people to think that all the women who are Christians going without veil head coverings are prostitutes. And so does that make sense? Okay. Gosh, I should have spent less time on this, but the abuse at the Lord's Supper, so horrible, but yet St. Paul reiterates that Jesus Christ is truly present in the Eucharist. That is, when we celebrate the Mass, it is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. How do we know this? Because of this horrible thing. St. Paul says in chapter 11, verse 27, whoever eats the bread or drinks the cup unworthily is guilty of profaning the body and blood of the Lord. That is his body and blood. In fact, that idiom, profaning the body and blood of the Lord, means you're guilty of his murder. And that's really important. That's one of the reasons why every single one of us has to go to confession before we go to communion. If we're aware of mortal sin, if we're aware of serious sin, we have to go to confession before receiving Holy Communion. That's why there are debates like of coming before the Lord, going to Mass and receiving Holy Communion. If someone is in public and obstinate opposition to the commands of God, that they may not receive Holy Communion. Typically, we police ourselves. It's like, I'm not going to go forward. If I go forward, I'll maybe cross my arms over my chest to receive a blessing. But yeah, it's tough because St. Paul says this is why people are dying even. And it's a big deal. I spent too much time talking about the beginning of chapter 11. I think it's important though, because our sisters, you need to know that we are equal. The church, I was going to say this last word, not only the gifts of the Holy Spirit. How amazing is that? Tomorrow we're going to talk about the greatest of these is love. Okay, that's going to be amazing. But the gifts of the Holy Spirit, you guys, we need to have these gifts. Okay, the world hated the church originally. Why? Because the world said the men and women are different. And church was like, yeah, men and women are different and they're equal. And the world hated the church for that because we said men and women are equal. Now, the world says men and women are not different. Men and women are the same. And the world hates the church again because the church still says men and women are equal, but also men and women are not the same. We're not equal. We're complementary. And so it's so interesting, right? How the world changes, and yet the church continues to be hated. Church continues to be hated. But what can we expect? Jesus said it would happen. Okay, long day. Sorry about that, guys. My name's Father Mike. I'm praying for you. Please pray for me. My name's Father Mike. I cannot wait to see you tomorrow. God bless.